before we start, I was just going to go around the room and introduce myself, and then everybody can, just since it's the first time we've been face to face. So, Steve Bird, I've been on the Parks Commission. This will be my almost 3.5 years now. So, April.
I'm the newest member to the commission, April Schmidt. That's not much to say.
Your first real meeting tonight.
Yes, my first real meeting.
My name is Chris Oaknight, and I've been on the commission. It's either since December or January. I can't quite remember, but not a year.
Angie Smith. I've been on the commission for 4 years. Wow.
Juan Penangio, and I've been on the commission, I think, going about 8 years now, probably.
Ben Russell, I've been on the commission for about 3.5 years.
Melissa Sorenda. I think this is my second year on the commission.
Brianna Wills, I think I've done 30 years.
Well, it's good to see everybody in person. So, is there an approval? Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second it.
All right, all in favor? Okay. Next, are there any items not on the agenda? Doesn't look like there's any members of the public, so new. All right, then the fourth item is the presentation of the comprehensive recreation master plan.
So we have two of our consulting team here tonight from Barry Dunn. We have Danny and Elsa, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to go on the last names yet, but they've been with us all day today and have been meeting with staff and some other stakeholder groups and just trying to really learn about the community. So the bulk of the rest of this meeting will be you learning a little bit about them and our process, and then helping them get some input on how to make this whole master planning process better. Just to remind you all, this master planning is focused on recreation programs and facilities, so it is not playgrounds, trails, parks, natural spaces, trees. We've done all that. This is more focused on the active use areas. So this rec center, Mercer Scanlon Rec Center, the outdoor athletic fields, the, what am I forgetting? The swimming pools is the big one too. And then most importantly, the equity in our recreation programming. How do we reach out? How do we get the biggest bang for our buck in serving our community? What groups aren't we serving very well that we can offer different services for, and do the best job we can to engage our community. So your input is valuable as our ambassadors as we go through this process. You'll talk with the consultants tonight. We will need 2 of you at the end of the night to volunteer to be on a steering committee, which will be about a monthly meeting in addition to the Parks Commission meeting. And then they'll be back when we have a draft report and some findings for the commission to see towards the end. So we'll keep you updated each month with events and what's happening with the plan, which really your input is tonight, and then the 2 representatives of the stakeholder group, and then you'll see it towards the end. So any questions about kind of the mechanics of all that? All right, so I'm going to ask Steve to kind of scoot that way. I'm going to move, and it's your show.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello. Hi.
I'm Elsa. This is Danny. Danny's getting her computer set up.
Well, you know what? We might both have to just
Stand.
look at behind, look at what's going on behind us. And I might have to work magic with the mouse from afar. Look at how
You know what? Just use
technology
this.
works. I could reach, yep. Reaching is easier. Are you gonna stand? You know, we haven't stood yet today, so this is work. And we did drive through crazy storms this morning, so we probably should just stand.
Hope you brought the rain with you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming right behind you.
You want the rain? Do you need it?
We're
Yes. We're a little crispy.
Oh, real? Okay. that we're actually coming to you from the Chicagoland area, but we have been hit with storms 4 days in a row.
Yeah, jeez.
Like tornadoes and then crazy weather, crazy. So
After it's the same thing you have, the drought for the last year, so we want the rain, not the storm.
right, yeah, well, love the rain. So you know what? Let's keep going with that. Let's just share a little bit about ourselves. You just shared. Both Elsa and I are coming to you from the Chicagoland area, the suburban caller. Elsa is at the top, if you will. I'm kind of at the bottom, like southwest side. So if any of you know where those areas are, I'm happy to talk with you about it after the meeting. But we're coming to you today from a firm called Very Done. And we are so excited to be able to talk about the project with you today, to help outline it for you, and then get a little bit of input from you to make sure that we are hearing from your respective perspectives. Let's go into just a little bit more about what we're going to talk about. We heard your names already, but I think what I would like to know, we'll go around the room and ask you maybe just why you were on the Parks Commission. You know, is there something about Parks and Recreation that you're really excited about, passionate about? And what brought you to this table? 3 years ago, a month ago, So I'm going to let April take a break because I just put her on the spot. So Steve, I'll put you on the spot first. What brought you to the commission?
Well, when I started, I still had young children that were really into the parks. We spent a lot of time getting them out of the house to spend time in the parks. Pretty passionate about outdoor spaces, and I think Iowa City's a unique place. There's lots of parks within the neighborhoods, and I think it really makes a livable, enjoyable community. So that's sort of what drew me to the Parks Commission at that point.
Fantastic, thank you. Young children and parks. I'll summarize. And Brianna.
I'm much like Steve. I have 4 children. We spent a lot of time even in the rec programs. Our children did the summer rec program for many, many years before they got too cool for it, of course. My son, I'm looking at this picture, my son is actually a swimmer at Mercer. That's where the city high school swims. The high school rents out that space for their swim team, so my son is there. My son is also a lifeguard for the city of Iowa City, so we also helped dedicate a park in our neighborhood in honor of our son who had passed away. So we renamed a park right in our neighborhood for our son. So we've, very much like Steve, just like a real appreciation for the outdoors. We also moved here from Madison, Wisconsin, and if you're familiar with their park systems, almost every neighborhood has like a community park and a neighborhood park, and I just wanted to see us move, and we're very much like that, but just that world, I just really loved and appreciated. So those are some of the things that brought me here, I guess.
Great, thank you so much, and shout out to Wisconsin. I'm born and raised and don't live there anymore. But yes, Melissa.
Hi, I came to the Parks and Recreation Commission primarily because I love and want to advocate for our trails and natural spaces and the parks and everything about the department that is a public good and a community service for the city. So
Great. Thank you so much. I love that word advocate. We're going to talk about that some more later. I'll shift it to Ben.
So, originally I just kind of wanted to get more involved in the community. I grew up here, did a lot of recreation programs here, obviously the parks, all that type of stuff. So I just wanted to kind of get more involved and see kind of what was going on these days. Now that, you being older and more mature, I guess you'd say.
A father yourself.
And then now we're like a new father, so he loves being outdoors, and so it's kind of what they have experienced is what I'm starting to go through now. How important it is to be outside. He loves slides, especially with parks and being outdoors and all that type of stuff. And so, just trying to continue on to help do what I can to kind of keep things moving and kind of everything else with it, I guess.
Great. thanks so much and congratulations.
No, thanks.
Okay. And please help me, Boniface?
Yeah, Boniface.
Boniface, thank you so much.
Okay, what really brought me to the parks was the fact that I came from Maryland, and out there we love the outdoors. We play soccer quite a lot, and there are a whole lot of fields in Iowa City, and every time I went out, there was no one there, so it's rare to find people there. So I came to the city park to see like how I can like impact the community and get people out there to use the field and take advantage of what Iowa City has to offer, because there are a lot of fields and really no one really uses them, and all they do is just mow grass basically. So yeah, that's why I came here.
That's fantastic, and ironically, our headquarters is out on the East Coast in Portland, Maine, so we know that area is very much connected to the outdoors, so thank you for trying to encourage folks here to do the same. Really wonderful, thank you, Boniface. Angie?
Yeah, similar, I have 3 kids who've been very active in the parks and recreation services, and they're getting older now, but I guess what I finally seeking to join was I just want to be more civically engaged. I've really enjoyed learning so much from being part of the commission and having a voice on things that impact my community, so I just enjoyed the civic community involvement.
Very good, thank you. I appreciate that, Angie, and there's a theme going on here, and I'm actually part of that theme. I'll show you. Chris?
So really for 2 reasons. One, I also enjoy being involved. I live in Louisiana. I've only lived here for about a year, but I've been on county commissions and state boards when I lived in Louisiana, and so I wanted to maintain that when I moved here to Iowa. Also, I'm a real estate lawyer and I have law faculty here at the university in my area. There's real estate transactions, so the role played by green spaces and public spaces and the use of property and configuring developments, both was something that I did in practice and that I teach law students about. So the Parks and Recreation Commission seemed like a good fit for my professional and academic interests.
I love that. I love that connection, the real estate connection. There is a lot of research on, as you probably know this already, Chris, I'm preaching to the choir maybe, but a lot of connection and research to folks wanting to buy homes in areas that have high quality park and recreation systems. So really great connection. Thank you for that. And now I've given April a little time to think about it and to a little bit more. Nobody twisted. No one has said, well, Julie twisted my arm. Well, go ahead.
Julie twisted my arm.
Oh.
No. We are neighbors though.
The truth comes out.
No. But seriously, I mean, I don't have young kids. Mine's 27 and gone, but I just as an individual wanting to learn more about what is here, because I don't really know what Iowa City has to offer for a lot of their parks and recreation things. Like I said, this is the first time I've been in this building, and I've lived here for 10 years. It's kind of embarrassing.
There's an underserved one right there.
But yes. I mean, well, I don't like to get out by myself, but I live by myself, so, you know, sometimes it's hard to just do that. But if I learn more about it, then it won't seem so bad, I guess. But also, you know, you were talking about being an advocate. Same thing there, you know, advocating for people in the community, listening to what people have to say. When we did, when they were doing our park, Cardigan Park, they came to our neighborhood and took our input, and I had never seen that before. I mean, to me, that was amazing. And they actually took our input and put it in place. I mean, I've never seen that before. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that piece was awesome. But then also, I'm working with the young women in my church now. And I'm hearing ideas from them. They're like, well, gosh, this would be nice if we had it here. This would be nice if we had it here. So, you know, it's not just the adults that bring things to the table. It's listening to the young people, you know, a lot of times they're the ones that utilize the things that are there, so just coming up with listening to their ideas is really been interesting, because things have changed, what they are interested in over time.
Yes, absolutely, especially if you're talking teenagers. We never know
Yes.
what they want, right? That's the try
But
to.
you know, these are, I don't know, these girls are really unique, and it's really neat that they're like, you know, these are the things we like to do, and it would be nice to see it here, so, yeah.
Great, I love that. It sounds like you all have brought different, walks of life to this situation. Hope everyone's okay in the city.
The fire station is just down the street, so
Yeah.
that happens all the time.
Got it. That's good to know. We're safe. We're close to safe. So the interesting thing is, through some research, sidebar is, I won't ask you all to raise your hands, but I'd be willing to bet that there are several Gen Xers in the room, because this is the time where you talk about civic engagement, Angie, and this is the time of life where your kids start getting older, and we have this need. And I will join your group because I recently became a park commissioner as well in my hometown, or my current hometown. So anyway, kudos to you all. Appreciate the work that you do, and we are going to look to you to help us be advisors and advocates all the way with this project. So I gave the tidbit, I guess that was my tidbit for you. Elsa's not going to get off the hook.
Oh, I need to introduce myself.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm Elsa Fisher. I've been a consultant with Barry Dunn now for about a year and a half, and prior to that, I worked in Parks and Recreation in Illinois for 32 years at 4 different agencies, so managing a lot of the facilities that you all own in Iowa City, and happy to be in person. This is awesome, and kicking off this project. We're really excited to take this on, and all the staff we've met today, and the other stakeholders, and all of you. I mean, you're all here for the right reason, and it's really exciting. So thanks for your time, and introduce yourself.
I forgot that part, right? So, hello everyone. I'm Danielle Wilson, or Danny. Please call me Danny. I am with Barry Dunn just for about 2 years, but the reason why we have such a short tenure is Barry Dunn just recently created a Parks and Recreation consulting practice. So, like Elsa, I worked in the park and recreation industry in the Chicago area at a couple of different, what are called park districts there. So, a little bit differently organized from a taxing body perspective, but same concept, parks and recreation for communities. I digress. My degrees are in parks and recreation, jobs, park recreation. My spouse is in the field as well, so I live and breathe this world. And so to have joined the consulting side of our industry about 5 years ago has really helped me reach out to different communities like this one. And I am so excited about this project. And look, it gives me goosebumps. No joke, it's for real. So excited because Julie and Brad have already helped us grow, and that it's really important for this community and this project to engage as many folks from as many walks of life, with as many perspectives as we possibly can, to create a plan for them. And so for us, it's super exciting. Let's share a little bit more about that. Here's what we're going to do. If you haven't read it already, we're going to talk to you about the intended goals and objectives, approach, and schedule for the plan, your participation, really, you are stakeholders in this, the community engagement process, and we'll have a little discussion through the process as well, or today's meeting as well. A little bit more about us, Barry Dunn. So our firm is the lead firm of a couple of different consulting firms that are working collaboratively to make this happen for you. So you see Chad Snow, he is our principal in charge. But the two you'll see the most with the project, well actually the two that you will likely see when we come back to present the report, myself and Elsa Fisher, who you've met. Barbara Heller is our engagement manager. She is our team lead, practice lead. She has been in the industry for 40 years, so lots of experience in park and recreation to draw from. And Jason King just joined our team. He is going to be helping a lot with the community engagement piece of the project. So we are helping to lead this project. We have a background backing of about 600 employees at Barry Dunn. And in addition to a whole side of the business that works on financial consulting, we have a whole group of folks, I don't even know anymore, 50 of us maybe, that are in local government consulting. And so we have this wealth of folks to draw from in this circle right here. So not only Parks and Recreation, but Justice and Public Safety, K through 12, Public Education, Finance and Administration. So we have a whole team of resources that if we had a question on a project along the way, a group that understands your world and this world and our world, we work together if needed. So with us, we have, it's your turn. Sorry, is your mic? Okay, sure. So make sure you're all right. I'm fine. Your aquatic facilities, as Julie mentioned, and the indoor facilities, the rec centers, we have experts from the UT group on the left, and Williams Architects and Aquatics on the right. These folks are going to help us with the mechanical. So if you look at this line, this group of folks looks at the mechanics. So this is going to be really important as we look at City Park Pool. 72 years old, yeah, so Rich Clark is heading that up, and then this other group, John McGovern, is the lead ADA consultant. So in addition to this, at these facilities, not only are we looking at the pool's structural soundness, we also will help update the ADA transition plan, and that's mandated by law, and so we've got a team of folks that's what they're really good at and experts at. And then we also have our architects that these two folks, Frank Parisi and Andrew Caputo, specialize in aquatic facilities. So it's nice to have them come on board. Frank Parisi also helps assess and build rec centers. So it's a nice marriage with those two levels of expertise. The nice thing about working with all these folks, and we have a little information about WT Group, Williams Architects, they build really beautiful buildings, and I have to brag, I'm gonna brag, I worked at this one. Frank, if we go back in time, that's when I was a practitioner there, he was the architect there. So it's kind of fun. Our groups have all worked together on projects a lot, and we're excited to bring that team approach to this project as well. Additionally, the athletic facilities, you may recognize the name Eric Hornig or heard reports from Eric. He has, and his team has helped with your athletic fields and long-term planning for those fields. We have them come onto the group to talk about, okay, well, how does this still play in? How, when we're looking at recreation-specific facilities with active recreation sites that Julie mentioned, how does the work they have done play into this, and then now what are the next steps?
And I would mention Andy's pictures up there. You met him too. He's the designer of the City Park Adventure play that we just finished. So.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And one other, you don't want to know any more about Hitchcock. You already know about Hitchcock, but you may not know about ETC Institute. This photo is Jason Morano. There's also one of his colleagues, Ryan. I lost his last name. Sorry. Ryan Murray? Ryan Murray. Anyway, ETC Institute specializes in statistically valid surveys. And so they bring their package of expertise, and they're going to help craft the survey and administer the survey. The goal of having something statistically valid is to make sure you're hearing a representative voice based on a variety of factors. So age, gender, location in the community. That way we don't hear the loudest voice from the community. All right, any questions on the partner program or how this all works together? Not yet, you all are smart people. All right, so what are we doing? Julie mentioned that we're creating a plan that's specific, the comprehensive plan, but really honing in on your facilities and programs. But what that really means is that our goal is to help create a customized and achievable roadmap. So approximately 10 years, we'll see if that will help. Fred mentioned 10 years. based on what I've heard, what they've said is Julie and Brenda are really good at when there's a plan in place, they work the plan. The master plan, it helps drive what they do every day. So that's exciting for us. We're going to help create this plan that you will have in the end, this tool, high quality, realistic tool that will help guide your future decision making. And if you were to have residents here tonight that would want to know, well, why are you doing what you're doing? You use it as backup. As your neighbors ask you, well, why did you decide to do this with your programming? Well, this is what you told us you wanted us to do. So you can use this tool as a guide for the future. So we do want to make sure that it is a compelling, inclusive vision, that it's highly community driven, that we are working collaboratively with everyone to make sure the diverse needs are met. And that team-based approach is what we were talking about with the other consulting firms that we're working with. Identifying with you all, you're part of our team too, of course. Identifying innovative opportunities for equity in the facilities you have and the services you provide. That wraps up into that tool. Right? So you're probably thinking, okay, that's a lot. So how are you going to do that? So Elsa's going to help walk us through what the plan is.
So the first step in the process is to engage. We're going to engage all of you. We're going to engage the staff. We want to engage the community. We'll do that via the statistically valid survey that Danny spoke about. We'll do that with some focus groups and attending events. We're going to come up with a full menu of ways that we're going to engage the community. The stakeholder group that two of you are going to excitedly join, they're going to help us reach many of the parts of the community that may not be using Parks and Rec. Families that might be having a tough time putting food on the table, signing up for a swimming lesson isn't a priority. So that part of the process is going to be very, very, very important. We want to hear from everybody, and we've been told by Brad and Julie from the very beginning that we don't just want to check the box, we want to make sure that we hear from all walks of life in Iowa City, and that we can create a plan then that will serve the needs of all of those people. So the second part of this is assess. We're going to assess. And Danny's introduced you to the partners. We're going to assess the recreation programming with Brad and Julie's staff. We'll take a deep dive into what's being offered, how it's being offered, where it's being offered, when it's being offered, what's working, what's not working, and get the staff to ask some tough questions of themselves. Are there programs that need to be decommissioned? Are there new programs that need to be started? I think we've heard that new programs need to be started. We need to figure out what people want. And then the other parts of the team will be assessing the pools, they'll be assessing the recreation centers, and then the ADA component, very, very, very important. The envision part is after we do all this assessment and we have all this data, what do we do with it? Well, we'll sit down with the steering committee, with the staff, and we'll talk through, where do we need to go with this information? What does Iowa City want from Parks and Recreation Department? And then at that point, once we have a basis, initial recommendations, we'll check back in with the community to make sure that we've heard it right and that we're going in the right direction. And then from there, we'll finish the action plan, present the final report by March of 2022. And then it's really important to us that Iowa City implements the plan that is written. So we'll provide an implementation workshop for staff to give them some tips on how to make this real. And clearly, Iowa City staff are used to working a plan, so they might not need as much help. And then we'll check in 6 months out and 12 months out to kind of assess how things are going. So that's the how. The project is divided into some phases, and all of the gray, those are all the deliverables. So in the first phase, we need to, after we've had these meetings and we've talked to staff, we'll create a work plan that Brad and Julie will approve. Yes, this is what we're going to do. I mean, we have a good idea of what that is, but specifically, how is the engagement going to work and when is it going to happen?
I switched on you.
You switched on me.
It's the same stuff.
It's the same stuff. It's okay.
Yeah, so, and the other big thing about the first phase is there's a lot of discovery that we, the consultants, need to do. So we go back and look at all the other planning that Iowa City has done in the past. Past plans, we look at program evaluations, we'll look at registration data. So we want to learn as much as we can about it before we jump into the engagement. So we actually start that now. And then, yeah, so then the first deliverable is the work plan, and then we always provide updates after we have meetings. So engagement, we've talked a lot about engagement. After we do all of these variety of things, the focus groups, community meetings, meeting people where they are, all of that, we'll write it all up in an engagement summary. And that engagement summary for this particular plan will be massive because we have big plans to get a lot of input. So that will summarize everything that we've learned from the public engagement. So in the analysis phase, we talked a little bit about this, but there's many deliverables here. The aquatic deliverable, the recreation facility deliverable, the ADA transition, the athletic field, and then of course the programs and services. This is the most time-consuming part of the report. That will take several months. So then, as I mentioned, we get all this information, then we sit down with staff and say, this is what we've learned, how do we put it into a plan, then we'll check back in with the community, and then in the fifth phase, we finish up the reports. But it's not just one deliverable, it's many. So that's how the project breaks down into phases. And then this you can't read, you're not supposed to read it. But all of the deliverables and all of the phases are broken down into weeks so that we know, and Brad and Julie know, what we're going to be accomplishing as we go along. If for some reason engagement takes a little longer because we realize there's more groups than we thought, then we just start tweaking the schedule. But the goal right now is to be done by March of 2022.
Yeah, so the best laid plans can adjust, but at the same time, we try to do our best to meet this, and we can try to adjust some of the things we do internally. But we just hope to give you a visual just to show that, all right, this is the direction we're going.
So stakeholder participation, we met with staff first thing this afternoon, and we talked about what their role would be. It's important for us to connect with their participants through them. So they're going to be helping with a lot of that, and we brainstormed about how ways to reach people and what to ask people, and you know, how we meet people where they are. And all the staff people, all of their staff have connections with different types of groups, the aquatics people, the people that play youth sports, and certainly there's overlap sometimes, but sometimes you only see one family of one particular activity. So our goal is to engage the staff as much as we can. We did meet with the steering committee that two of you will be joining tonight, earlier to talk about their role. So they're going to act as project advisors for us. They have a lot of connections in the community already. And so we will leverage their relationships to reach people that they work with to get their input. And then all of you, you're the sponsor and providing support, also project advisors, and you're representing the community. And two of you will be joining the committee, and my understanding is that Julie and Brad and the two that join the committee will keep you apprised between now and next February or March.
Great. Any questions on the process? Anything stand out?
How do you do engagement in this environment? I mean, community meetings, it's hard enough to get people to show up when things are good. So
Steve has X-ray vision and can see the next slide. No joke, because look
I
what the
call
next
my
slide says. 2 points for Steve today. So thank you for asking that question. And we do have some plans on what we'll talk about, but I will address that question of, well, how do you do that? Like how do you do that in masks, right? We've learned to adjust, kind of. So if for some reason we weren't able to be present with you at all, as last year, in a lot of communities, we did have to, just out of necessity, move to a completely virtual engagement option. Focus groups were online. Believe it or not, town hall type meetings were done online. They're more informational based rather than feedback based, unfortunately.
But we did some survey questions on Zoom, and they were really successful.
That's true. Zoom has that
Raise your hand.
polling, yeah, raise your hand and polling feature. So we have tried to become adept at software functionalities such as Zoom and Teams, right? And then there's well, yeah, right. So the last meeting we just have to kind of joke about because we had a hybrid meeting where we had half of the group in the room and half of the group trying to join virtually. We will give ourselves maybe a C for like me. It was myself a C for planning enough ahead for that, but it kind of works. It's not ideal, right? Like, we would all love to be able to do whatever we want and without masks, but the other things we have done in some other communities is things that we would typically do is just adjusted how we do it. So for example, if we have a booth at an event, maybe before people would just use the same marker and go up on the board and write it. Well, now we could write it for them, for example. Or we used to have these voting boxes that we would set up and you could take your play money and vote. They used to be right next to each other. The boxes were 6 feet apart, right? Where you could still do the activity, but just a little bit further distance apart. So we've tried to come up with different ways to still get that feedback. And I think in this case, now that things are kind of opening up, we can expect to do a little bit more of that back to the way we did it before and trying to have that in-person connection. Because really that's the way we can best get people's feedback and build trust in community, and that's where we're going next. Smarty over here.
Well, and COVID or no COVID, you always need several ways to get feedback because everybody reacts differently to different things. You know, some people want to be in person, and some people want to be on the computer, and some people are willing to talk to you when they drop a child off for class. So we have to have a menu of different ways to reach people, whether it's, we're in masks or we're not. But it's a good point.
Yeah, very true. Variety is key. I'm just quiet pause for a moment. So y'all can hear and the video can hear. So the question might be, okay, well, why do we do this? We want to make sure we think of the why, not just go and jump into things. And some of the reasons why we want to engage the community is to build trust. In some communities, there is not a lot of trust in government, or in just some people, there isn't a lot of trust. And so for us to ask people what they think is a method to help build that trust. We also want to make sure we are serving equitably, and so to ask people's opinion and engage in the conversation and pull them and welcome them into hearing their feedback. We would hope to provide some equitable offerings that way, promoting community, this sense of community, this civic responsibility, this piece of being involved and connected is very important. The staff would also like to make some informed decision making. Someone said this morning, I don't want to guess anymore. And then there's a lot to that. They don't want to guess what people want to do. They want to ask, what do you want to do? We'll make it happen. And if we make it happen, hopefully people will be satisfied with our service. Because they asked us for it, we made it happen, and hopefully they'll say, yes, thank you for that. You listened to us. Which therefore drives social transformation, right? So earlier today, Julian mentioned grassroots efforts to make change happen. That's where our communities do thrive and change, is sometimes those grassroots efforts to create that change that makes sense and works for a community. It's also very important with community engagement to meet families where they are and that outreach, and not just hope everyone comes to our town hall meeting, for example, because to Elsa's point, sometimes people can't make it to that day and that time. Sometimes people aren't comfortable coming to us. So our goal with this is to definitely go to people where they're at. But we also want to ask you, what else is missing? Why else should we do community engagement? Why else should we ask the community's opinions? Anything else come to mind besides what's on this list? Nope, we made it all happen. We heard a few other things like building rapport with the trust and rapport.
Maybe
earlier today.
increase information, because as you're reporting out information, people are also hearing, oh, I didn't even know we did that, I didn't even know we had that. So it also
Right.
is an informational sharing experience, or it can be.
Mhm. You learn from your peers as you're sitting in the focus group, for example. Good. Thank you. All right. So how are we going to do this? This is Dee's question. What are you going to do? Okay, so we kind of have 4 core areas that serve as our framework for making the community engagement happen. One would be a statistically valid survey that we mentioned a little bit already. One is outreach, going out to folks where they are at, and be it your parks and recreation facilities and events that you're already doing. But also we challenged staff and said, okay, well, what else happens in the community and where? And we got a lot of feedback of other places and other groups to reach out to, and perhaps pull them into specific focus groups. But staff mentioned churches this morning, that we started to reach out to folks that are, we want to make sure we're hearing from non-users. There might be folks in that church group that are users and some that are non-users. How do we make that connection? How do we pull that together? You mentioned church earlier, April. It's a really great community building location, but there are a lot of other groups in the community that are meeting for their own reason. One of the steering committee members in the last meeting said, well, can we ask to go to that group? And not only say, hey, can you fill out our survey, but actually, can we take 10 minutes and get your feedback now? Can we have the discussion now? Do you mind giving us 10 minutes or 15 minutes in your next agenda? So really, the outreach and focus groups helps us to connect, hopefully in person. And then there is an online platform that we use called Social Pinpoint. Has anyone heard of it before in your work life? In anything else? No? Okay. There are several of these platforms that with COVID, the usage went straight up and communities started using it in much more robust fashion. But the online platform provides it's its own website, essentially, that we will show you in a moment. That you have a landing page, and then there are multiple tools that we can use, and with staff and the steering committee, we'll decide which one of those tools works best. So there's one area where it's almost as if you were to envision Post-it notes. And you can ask folks, like, tell us what you think about this. They put their Post-it note. Some of it actually encourages conversation virtually, like a blog. There's an area, even with a map feature, we wanted to use it. And place your pin where you think this next thing should be placed. And we'll make any assumptions on that. Results from things like the statistically valid survey could look like this. If we choose to ask for a ranking of facilities, for example, ETC has a way of combining 2 different ways of asking about a facility and assigning it this priority investment rating, PIR, thank you, where they overlay the 2 and it helps to show us visually, okay, these have received, based on this ranking and these 2 lines of questioning, the highest ranking. The thing we have to be careful about, especially with this study, is there are things that sometimes land down here. Curling was made fun of earlier, but if there's a significant population of your community that wants curling, and we look into it, well, there's not any curling for 1,000 miles for them to be able to participate in curling, for example. Maybe that's something that we should be doing here. So we have to be careful of all of our surveys that we run to caution us to not look at those green results. So more to come. with that. This is the example of the outreach. This was last fall, and so for the photo op, they were pushed together, but then the voting boxes were actually pulled apart onto separate tables. But we can do different outreach opportunities, like pop-up feedback stations. It could be in a rec center, it could be in a library, it could be at a local business. So different pop-up stations, event booths, places that make sense in the community. We can also do some of the intercept surveys, just try to get folks to tell us what they think, where they are. These are two examples of social pinpoint landing page. We get to customize that with your steering committee and your staff. And then we get to customize these different areas with the photos that make sense to you to pull them into another brief survey, not a statistically valid one, but maybe one that we want to ask just specifically about this thing on the survey. Places to share ideas. They can do voting, like a budget. You give them $100,000 to work with, and then they get to tell you, all right, I want you to put all 10,000 or 100,000 into this area. So it's definitely interactive in a virtual way. And so with that, part of the discussion we want to make sure we talk, especially with this group, is actually if I rewind and I'll double check with the staff, that was anyone in this group a part of creating the current master plan?
The 2016 Park Master Plan, I think Angie probably would be the only one.
Okay, so Angie, you are the chosen one. No, we won't put you on the spot to have memorized this vision statement, but as a part of that process, a vision statement was created that at the time the group decided that you wanted an accessible parks and recreation system committed to building community and servicing all residents. And then to support that, the mission associated with that vision is to foster the community's engagement, sense of place, and well-being through a parks and recreation system that's allied with all the residents and visitors regardless of all these things. So our question to you to make sure we're on the right track is, have you heard anything that doesn't affirm this as a part of this process? So it's a double negative there. Has anything come about as we presented, here's what we're planning on doing? Does any of it not align with this vision and the mission? Because this is a time to make sure that we do align. I don't think so. So we want to make sure we're still following what you all said you wanted to do. And put you all in that group because you get to be commissioners now. A lot of you are newbies, right? So it's good to revisit this to show that what was intended as a part of this plan 4 or 5 years ago is still being pulled through into the efforts that are happening now. That's super important to make sure that you all remember if you are making decisions about different things in the commission, does it fit the vision and mission? If it doesn't, maybe it's not the right decision. So sounds to me I've given you a little extra time to think about it. Sounds like we're on track. I'm seeing nods. And affirmation, which is wonderful. There are 2 questions here that we wanted to ask you about the project outcomes. Now that you've heard about what the intention is and how it would work roughly, what are the things that you're most excited about for this project? And what are some ways that we can walk the vision walk through this project? And you can pick the question that you like the best. What are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about readdressing City Park Pool. I think our neighboring communities have taken a different approach to their pool facilities, and that's okay. We don't have to do the same approach, but I just would like to get a comprehensive feel of how the community feels about it as far as, do we want it to be kind of a traditional outdoor pool? Or do we want it to be more like a slides and rides kind of pool, which some of our neighboring communities have chosen a little more. So I just, that's something that I'm really interested in hearing.
Very good. Sounds like staff is as well. Ben, you were nodding your head. City park pool.
Yeah, so, I grew up in that pool and it's already been changed from when I was there just a little bit, but, I kind of just be real curious to see what people think, what they like or what they don't like, I'm a big fan nowadays, especially with going like, I don't know what's called, but when you walk in the pool
Zero
and
entry.
yeah, zero entry and just like, I just want to sit there. Kind of just like stuff like that. My life has definitely changed from back 20 years ago. But just, City Park itself, has already been changed with a lot of new stuff, so it's exciting and just trying to see, that's one big focal point I think that everyone kind of focuses on. It's one of the bigger parks in town, and so it's just see that and just kind of the other stuff, I always like people's input in general, because I don't get to always experience or get out to see other, every part of town, and so that's what I'm excited, just to really see everyone's broad view of what they're thinking, and what am I not thinking of, what am I missing, what can I learn from it? So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, for mentioning that. That is something that we try to look for, especially with the program assessment, is where are the gaps? Not just what's going well, what's missing, but where are those holes? So it's important. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us.
I was trying to be very still.
I know. I had to do it to the professor. All right. What else are we most excited about?
Kind of like Ben, I'm excited about hearing what people want to see in the community. Looking at the list of the survey results, some of the examples you've had, I can pick out the things that I'd like to see, but I'd really like to see what everybody else wants to see. Like maybe there's a bunch of people who want curling. I don't know, but yeah, I'd love to see that.
Right. Very good. Thank you so much, Melissa. Yes.
Basically the same as what they're saying. I'm really excited about what the responses are going to be because of how diverse the city is. You can have so many different responses. I mean, it's going to be really neat, I think, to find out what people really want.
Thank you so much for that. Any other ways we can walk the vision walk? And put it, and really that means putting equity in the forefront of every piece of this project. What we didn't make as clear earlier, I want to make sure we do know from an ability perspective. That is a really great key that we have John McGovern and that ADA team from WT Group to help make sure from that perspective we have that built into the project. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about community engagement. Is there anyone we should make sure in answering that who should we make sure is included? Are there groups that come to mind where you're like, oh, make sure they're involved somehow?
I think the South District Neighborhood Association, if they're not already on the radar, is definitely somebody you want to work with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's also several service groups, something like Rotaries that are relatively popular in town, like the Noon Rotary and the Downtown Rotary. We probably have 5 or 6 different groups, and that tends to skew us in a little bit of an older population. So I think that would be interesting to make sure we get a large range of age ranges.
Good, thank you for that. Any other groups in town? Are you a part of other groups? That, oh no, Brianna, are you tied to multiple?
Too many groups.
Too many groups, too many groups.
The thing that goes around on my head is the transient student bodies at the college. And how that, how does that impact all of this?
It's a good question.
Right.
Because that's a huge chunk of people.
A huge chunk of people who are paying a lot of money to go to school here, but not paying taxes to reside here. I mean, it's just, they have an interesting perspective.
One thing too is, because I've been thinking about this, like how can we get the minority population, especially given the fact that Iowa City is growing in a sense that people are coming a lot to Iowa City, given that, they have a lot of like new schools and university as well. Like, I've just been thinking, how can we get the minority population out to the parks and to get involved in the city, and especially populations that do not speak the same language as everybody else.
Right. Which, I thought Elsa was doing this to point to me. Danny, we got this point.
I had a little line.
We didn't say this point, but the Social Pinpoint website does have the Google Translate button at the top, which is all really great. But to take that a step further, as Elsa has pointed out, you have to know that if I go there, it will translate it for me. So that's something we have to pay attention to from the beginning, to your point. That we want to make sure it's as accessible as possible, and people know that from the start.
I would say certainly reaching out. I mean, this is probably obvious, like your K through 12 schools and then your business community, your Chamber of Commerce, working through them. And then the school district has, obviously several different modes of ways of reaching students and families.
Okay, thank you.
I think making sure you have something besides web-based tools is really important, because you're missing out on a lot of underserved population, because they don't have accessibility to technology either, because they don't know how to use it, if I think about my parents, or
Can't afford it.
accessibility or affordability.
Right.
Yeah, the online can only be a portion.
Correct.
You can't rely on it completely.
You can survey people like places like the farmers market. It would be kind of a unique clique of people, probably. County fair, state fair, that's probably not super useful.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, you got to think outside the box and think about where the reach
Veteran population.
is.
Yeah, the VA would be good. Through any of the hospitals, I don't know if there's HIPAA issues kind of with that, and how that works. But
I missed what you said. What?
Veteran population.
Veteran, oh, thank you, yeah.
yeah, you could do like the VFW groups, those kind of, yeah, that'd be a good idea.
That isn't, I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's not typically one we would have in our master list, if you will, of folks. And a lot of times we segment it by age, and ability, and race, but we don't often think of that, but because of the VA hospital being here, that really is important to this community, so I appreciate you bringing that up. This is why your group is so important to us.
I think the private sports group who already use the facility or potentially don't use our facilities because we lack something, and there's probably quite a few kind of club sports groups that a certain population of people would use.
Very good. So we talked about who. Any other thoughts on how? Stephen, I appreciate you bringing up the more than just online. Any other how answers?
I liked your box idea where you give them some amount of money and let them, spend their money. I think that is kind of a visual way for people that aren't necessarily good as far as like reading comprehension, as far as reading a survey. That's like a very visual learner type way to do that, so I really like that.
Yeah. We've seen the cotton ball trick too. Different jars or containers where they get you don't have to do as much manual dexterity as you do on ball terms. Yep. We're gonna move to our last point here is talk about your role. Because you're probably thinking, okay, well, what does this mean for me? Beyond these walls in this meeting room, you are representatives in the community of the department and the actions of what's happening in the department. So we ask that you would be ambassadors, that when you are out in your multiple groups that Brianna's a part of, that you are able to talk about the project, maybe answer some questions, but if you don't know the answers, to be able to either go to your 2 liaisons, by the way, 2 liaisons, to the steering committee, and go to staff and say, hey, you know what, we had this question, how can we answer it? Or we had this feedback, I need to give it to you. So that you're able to encourage folks to participate in the statistically balanced survey, the social pinpoint site, to go and check it out. There will be updates that happen along the way on the website, so they can see the progress and answer different things. We mentioned earlier, Elsa mentioned that halfway through, when we're coming up with what that plan is going to be, we want to go back out and ask, hey, so here's where we're at, what do you think? So we want to make sure that you all are familiar with the fact that we're hoping for you to be ambassadors, to be champions of this project and be that voice back to staff. If you are hearing things, word on the street, when you're out with your friends or neighbors or whomever, and you already know, you have to remember, right? That you're able to be a conduit from that perspective too, between the community and the staff, so that we can build feedback into the project and plan. So that is the end of our presentation, but we want to open up the table, if you will, to any other questions, comments, concerns, feedback. Or it's dinner time, your stomach is growling, and we're so happy that it didn't last the 2 hours that we initially allotted for it.
Just talk slow because my computer isn't working.
And Elsa's quite on her too, so we're at, you know,
I got a good pen.
Good pen, good paper. Stomachs are growling. Yeah, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the continued work that you will do to help staff along the way and advise them. And we'll see you maybe in March. I just say maybe because we'll have to make sure meeting dates align and all of that stuff with staff.
Great.
Great, thank you. All right,
Thank you, Danny. That was-
Thank you so much.
All right, we have the abbreviated agenda. So the one thing you'll need to do is talk about your 2 representatives.
Yes, so in your packet, there was a sort of summary about what they're looking for 2 volunteers to participate in the steering committee. I ask if there's anybody who's interested in being part of the steering committee.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm happy to volunteer.
So what would the commitment, it's once a month, what would it, is there a certain day of the month or week or time of the day?
Yeah, maybe if I could have Brad maybe answer that.
So we met with the steering committee earlier that had some community members representing different organizations, and we met from 3 to 4:30. They indicated that that time worked for them. That doesn't mean that that could necessarily change depending on availability, but that's probably what we look to do, is probably have like a 3 to 5 p.m. meeting or something along those lines.
Might be virtually, it might be in person, depending
Yeah.
on where we go with COVID.
I think Chris said he'd like to do it. You leave early, you get nominated.
It's that time of day, you're already hard, regular.
we could go with one if you want, because we have some other community groups we can invite to take the other spot. But just want to make sure we kind of earmark 2 spots for the commission, so.
I can do it.
Go Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Yep, yeah, no problem.
This would be roundtable if you wanted it. It's not on.
All right, well, we'll do a quick roundtable. Andy, do you have anything you'd like to speak about today or future meetings?
Well, the only thing, I was recently out at Oakland Cemetery, and I was talking to some of the staff there, and they were saying, oh, we haven't been to a commission meeting in forever, and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess not. Not that there's any urgency, but I was thinking, oh.
You'd like to have a presentation from Cindy?
I don't know if I do need it, I was just saying, oh, yeah, we haven't really heard from Oakland specifically, where, I forget who, they were like, oh, we had come to a meeting like 10 years ago or something, it's been a while. And I thought, oh,
We should give them a little love.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what they have to offer to, but it is part, it's under our umbrella.
It is.
Maybe we should give them a little oversight.
And honestly, it might be interesting to actually do the meeting out there and get a little tour.
Oh, yeah, Halloween.
It's dark.
Yeah, good.
That's it, okay. We'll see what we can do this.
I mean, it is something I hear a lot about trees and pools, but like, I haven't really heard much about it. Anyway.
All right. April?
I was trying to find the email about the things I was talking about earlier. They had mentioned, like, we have no goofy golf here. I don't know if that has anything to do with goofy golf?
Goofy.
Mini golf, miniature golf?
Okay.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah, you're right. I don't.
I don't have anything to do with this.
Outdoor?
Sorry?
Just like outdoor?
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago.
So, and then,
And bowling alley.
Yeah, they do it once, but not outdoor.
and then a pump track
Uh,
for mountain bikes?
Yeah, we're actually working on that right now, a
Okay.
concept for that. So a pump track is paved path with lots of ups and downs for bicycle or like BMX bikes.
BMX
or,
bikes.
Yeah, roller skaters, inline skaters.
80s.
We are actually working on a grant application right now for potentially adding that to the skateboard project, which is scheduled for 2025. Some of the federal outdoor rec money that just became available, we're gonna try to pair those together. So it would be at Terrell Mill Park, which is really popular right now with skateboard. It's a 20-year-old park there and still gets a lot of use.
Where's that, Joe?
Terrell Mill, so right on Dubuque Street by the Beckworth Boathouse.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Across from Maytown.
Yep.
And so, yeah, we've got some pretty cool
Way
pictures
across
and designs for this pump track thing, which, yeah,
But
so
that's cool.
that could happen.
You said 25.
Yeah, it's CIP 25, so.
All right. Melissa?
No.
Ben? Well, I don't really have anything off the top of my head, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Question?
No, second.
All in favor? Aye. It's adjourned.
Thank you all.